Hey, our next speaker is the amazing Clifton Pettyjohn. Clifton has served as an essential factor in both the religious and educational cultures for over 20 years. With guided passion, he meshes years of practical professional trainings and personal life lessons with biblical principles to transform the lives of groups of divergent individuals. Clifton's view of purpose, vision, and transformation far exceeds the norm. He expresses this through his teaching, speaking, coaching, and consulting, as well as just everyday simple conversations. Clifton strongly urges people to live symmetrically through pursuing what he calls wholeness with a W in all core areas of their lives. His unique skills of delivery and personality serve at the foundation of the creation of a welcoming learning environment for everyone, including those viewed as ne'er-do-wells. Clifton currently serves as the administrator and lead instructor of the Transformation Center, which is a faith-based community for all people. He's also the CEO and certified transformation and purpose life coach at Clifton Pettyjohn Enterprise, a wealth and affluence consulting and coaching company. Welcome to the show, Clifton.
Thank you. So there I was sitting at the edge of my bed after making public a private decision that I had already made. And I remember in my mind thinking, what am I going to do with my life now? Everything that I've known to be normal is no longer normal. Everybody that has been my support system will no longer be my support system. It was one of the most freeing yet difficult moments of my life. Now, remember that word difficult. We're going to revisit that word difficult. I understood at that moment that I had two decisions to make. I could either sit on the edge of that bed and cry myself to sleep and spend that every night doing that over and over and again, or I could embrace the new norm and begin to live life with purpose. So during that time, as I said, was one of the craziest times ever. The term "what now" came to me. I did not know what I was going to do with the term "what now." I know I'm an author, so I figured, hey, it's going to be a book, and it is going to be a book. But as time went on, the idea of using it as a podcast came along. So the podcast was developed. We have the catch line of a space where we discuss effective ways of facing life's most difficult moments. Well, the reality is that we all look at moments like that as difficult. But as I continue to do the podcast and continue to have conversations with individuals, and I continue to mature and grow, I understood that those moments were not difficult. Or if they were difficult, it was only difficult because that's how I had defined them. But yet they were defining moments. And they were not defining moments because they were defining me, but it was because I had the right, the authority, and the responsibility to define those moments. So I begin to take back the power in my life and define those moments, which kind of leads us to where we are tonight. Tonight, we're going to talk about the "what now" acronym, okay? This is an acronym that I developed in live time. So it is not a pretty acronym. It's a dual acronym. It's got a pretty part to it. But before we get to the pretty part, we deal with the ugly side of it. Because when it comes to change, our perception of change will determine the outlook that we receive. So one of the things that I had to understand was that either I'm going to learn to be a little more fluid as it relates to purpose. And the reason why I had to learn to be fluid with purpose is because I am a person that likes to plan everything out. I like to know A through Z before I make a move. Well, the problem there is with purpose is that sometimes with purpose, you might start at B, end up at H, go back to A, visit Z, come back to W, then you're back at B again. It does not work the way that we desire it to work. So I had to make up my mind. Am I going to do what I continue to do in my life when things didn't work out the way that I wanted them to? And that was walk away. I would quit. Or was I going to learn to be, as I said, a little more fluid and flow with purpose and allow purpose to express itself through me in a way that I never dreamt or imagined. There's a quote I love to live by. It says, change is inevitable. However, growth is intentional. Change is inevitable. Growth is intentional. And the reason why growth has to be intentional is because we have to make the decision to grow. And the only way that we honestly can grow as it relates to purpose is that we make up our mind that we are not going to allow circumstances and situations that happen in our lives to cause us to lose focus of our purpose. All right. So let's get to the dual acronym. Okay. Before we get to that, I have two essential questions I like to ask. I come from the classroom, so I still like to use essential questions sometimes. First essential question is, how do you respond when change comes in your life? Okay. The second essential question I want us to answer after this presentation, okay? And that question is, after hearing this dual acronym, what are some areas that you see that you need to make some adjustments in as it relates to your perception of change, all right? So let's get down here to this dual acronym. As I said, it's not pretty because it was created right in the middle of the fire. So what I did is, for each letter of the word now, I came up with the negative and the positive responses. It was my immature response, and then as I matured, the response I had for it. So when change came about, we're going to start with the letter N. The first thing I did was I said, no, not going to happen. This way is the way I know. I'm comfortable with this way. I don't care what you say. I'm not changing. Now, granted, many times it was not effective in my life, but yet I had just become so comfortable with it that, hey, it's the norm. So I had to embrace it. And we know how much our norm has been interrupted as a world with the pandemic. So that was one of the things how I handled it. The second negative thing that I did was I became numb to it. Now, here's the tricky thing about numbness. Sometimes we identify numbness as actually being healed or progressing beyond something. Why? Because it no longer bothers me or affects me. So it looks like to the naked eye, hey, you're ready to deal with this thing. You're excited about this newness. No, I just become numb there. I have no feelings there anymore. So then maturity kicked in. So when maturity kicked in, I had to stop looking at this newness as a punishment or this is just how it's going to be. And I had to realize I can take responsibility for it. So I understood the second level of it was with the N words was new. I understood this was new, something new for me, new opportunities, new possibilities, new territories, which goes along also with the other N word, which is navigate or navigational system. Sometimes we have to update our navigational system because new roads and neighborhoods are built. And if those new roads and neighborhoods are a part of the old navigational system, we're not going to be able to navigate around the new territory. So I had to come up and have a new mind or freshness in my mind and had to update my navigational system. And sometimes that means the way that we move physically. Sometimes it means the way we move emotionally, spiritually, in all core areas of our lives. So let's get to the O word. The first O word was I stood in opposition to it. I stood in opposition to it, and I still was attempting to do it the old way. I wasn't trying to advance with technology. I was trying to bring old tools, techniques, and strategies into something new. Does not work at all. So after being opposed to it, then I found myself being more open and optimistic about it. And the reason why I became open and optimistic about it was because I realized, wait a minute, I'm losing a battle that I'm never going to win. So the more open-minded and optimistic I became, the more I began to see the transformation take place in me, because I can't recognize transformation externally until I allow it to take place in my own personal life. So then we navigate down here to the W. I had a lot of words when it came to this word W because I had a lot of emotions. I condensed it for the time on tonight to wandering, wandering, not wondering. Now, wondering was one of the words, but wandering. Why? Because I found myself just living life, not even living life, just existing like a zombie, just going through the motions over and over and over again. You know, you were talking about working in corporate America, working in the education system. I could almost do it with my eyes closed. I understood everything. I knew the right thing to do, when to do it, when it was supposed to be done. But yet there still was an unfulfillment there. So I found myself just wandering and wandering and wandering hopelessly on a continuous basis until I came to the reality. As I said, I had to embrace the new and realize that the new was not attempting to be my enemy, but the newness was my friend. The newness was trying to show me the possibilities of how great and awesome I was created to be. It was trying to get me to tap into the essence of my creation. And I always talk about the essence of our creation because one of the definitions of the word essence is fragrance. And I always say, and I'm not talking about a natural smell, but I always say when we have conversations with individuals, they ought to leave with a fragrance from us. And I understood that sometimes when I was not fully walking in purpose, the fragrance that I was leaving with people, although I was doing some of my purpose, my fragrance was still laced with unfulfillment, bitterness, anger, all of those things, because I felt like there just was more. So when we get into purpose, we start to release such an essence that it also encourages other people to desire to get into purpose. And then finally, the word that we use to end it all is winning. Winning, winning. What does winning look like to you? When you begin to walk in purpose, you begin to understand you don't have to measure yourself against anybody else. You don't have to sound like anybody else, walk like anybody else, talk like anybody else. You just can be who you were created to be, because when you are being who you were created to be, you win because now you have understood that there is greatness inside of you and you are enough. Thank you.
Wow, Clifton, that was beautiful. Let's give it up for him, a little virtual here. And what a powerful message.